Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are listening to this podcast from any part of the globe. Educare means extracting the inherent powers of every individual, and we do not realize infants are born with very much blessed intuition, curiosity, exploration, robust memory, and they know the intentions of the adults and they learn the growing environment they are in through looking at the faces, looking at the body language of the adults around them, the places and the objects and the situations. Their emotional brain is very well developed at the time of birth, although the experiences create the structure and function of the brain, and the architects are the primary caregivers. And we have only 5 senses to connect with the world: sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell. And they're very, very alert in the infant, either to thrive and nurture safe practices, best practices of nurturing all the senses, or vulnerability of withdrawing themselves, the senses, because they cannot run away, they cannot stop seeing, they can shut down the vision, they can shut down the hearing because they cannot close their ears if something is harsh. They try to connect with the world whenever there is safety. And it is very, very important for the adult caregivers when they are expecting a baby to learn that everything they eat, everything they feel, everything they come across, the infections, the emotional stress, and watching videos and movies that are very filled with violence and guns and homicides and suicides, they do disturb the emotional development of the infant's brain within the uterus, particularly in the last trimester of pregnancy. Infants hear everything that the mom and dad are reading, or spiritual readings, or or they're watching movies with the violence. The infants do get stressed out with the maternal emotions. If mother is not kept well, mentally well, or healthy, the infant's fetal right hippocampus, which is the seat of emotional tag as well as processing information to present it to the executive brain, is shrunk in its volume. So we create through the foods that we eat epigenetic factors that where the risk for a at-risk gene to express or not to express is based upon the lifestyle management of either spiritual, calm life, eating more greens and less processed foods and wholesome cooking, versus putting anything in the mouth. That includes alcohol, substances that can affect the infant. But most of the brain connections happen after the infant is born, and these are 3 million connections per second, and it is the structure and the function that the windows of opportunity are widely open in the first 12 months. 150% of the brain connectivity happens not through screen time, not through electronic toys, not through flashy kind of things, not through moving things, but through adult to infant interaction. It is very, very crucial that the parents give that comfort, that emotional buffer, because they cannot move. They are emotionally high strung. They know everything what is going on, if your intentions are good or bad, or loving or not loving, or is it just a part of routine that happens from the time they are born, actually. And their mirror cells imitate the adult movements, and they perceive the concepts from the body languages of the adults around them. So we have to focus upon how the parent should be prepared for the parenting in the first 3 years of life, and the phrases they use, the approaches they take. It cannot be the learned experiences from their lived experiences. They have to unlearn those lived experiences, go with the evidence-based data that we have on what is important in the core concepts: motor system, gross motor development, coordination, fine motor concepts are very important for cognitive development, whereas For all development, the senses need to integrate and assimilate the information, and this is based upon the availability of social, emotional, calming down, responsive caregiving, so that there is an attachment and warm, positive relationships. And both the right brain feels the world, left brain is executive functions most of the time. And infants start learning vocabulary through rich syntax that the parents use, through musical, rhythmical presentation that comes to their ears. And there is a fact that is multisensory integration. That means through sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell, accepting the information, processing the information, distributing it to the major centers of the brain, because it is accepted and it is with an emotional tag that is positive. And the right and the left brains need to connect with the world, because Dr. Stephanie Amy has documented that in autism spectrum disorder, which is escalating and evolving more frequently, and the ADHD, the wiring is disturbed, so within the brain connections are missing. Right to left brain connections are also missing globally. And to promote that, there is a thing called as multisensory integration that has Bayesian principles. There is a spatial congruence. In other words, if you want the infant to listen to the music, it has to be at 25 centimeters distance. If infant has to look at your tongue, your lip movement, and getting stimulated that somebody is talking to me, and their mirror cells get stimulated, and their expressive center or the Broca center gets stimulated to speak back to you, and they make crude facial imitation presentation. If you watch them closely, that is also very active. And these are 3 million connections per second. And if you don't use them, you lose them. 9 million connections per second, leaving a scarred brain. And most of the connectivity in the first 12 months. 90% of the brain connectivity with the world completed by 36 months. Windows of opportunity are widely open for vision, or seeing things and listening things in the first 12 months. And by 3 years of age, the processing, the cognitive development, visual spatial reasoning, mathematical processing, numeracy, everything is done. And unless we create strong pathways, they are not going to be strong physically and emotionally and well balanced. And the balance for the infant is the mother and the father. External support, they are the buffers. So what do we do to fire senses together so they stay together? Infant colic is not pain, it is a communication. They're stressed out. They were floating in the dark cave of the mother's womb, in the warm saline, fed directly into the blood, and they're breathing the liquor. They have to suddenly breathe air and get adjusted to that barometric pressure differences, chemical and physical support systems, that they have to adapt. They didn't know that this is daytime, this is nighttime, so I have to sleep only at nighttime. That circadian rhythm they don't get used to until 10 weeks of age. So parents need to adapt to the newborn infant and be prepared so they take rest when the infant is sleeping. How do we impart and support this social emotional learning? Through responsive caregiving. Looking for the infant to needs and be there within 40 seconds at the most. Cuddle the baby, calm the baby, because we are the external support. And if we are mentally prepared for that, we are not anxious and we are not tensed up. If we are tensed up as adults, caregivers, the infant gets tensed up too, and therefore they cry too much. Crying is not pain, it is a need. Sort of hold me, cuddle me, I need your mommy's scent, I need mommy's warmth. And they calm down for the mother's voice more than so for the others, because they heard her all through. And this kind of a thing calms the internal adrenaline and cortisol secretions, and the touch itself causes the oxytocin surges that suppresses the epinephrine and adrenaline, otherwise cortisol, that causes the blood pressure to go up, the heart rate to go up, and distress get worse. So be calm, hold, give the scent, cuddle. Do not bounce up and down or side to side too much, but you move side to side because we can break the blood vessels and we um, cause the bleeding inside the brain, shaken baby syndrome. So put the baby on a tummy in a dark, quiet room. Gently massage the back from buttocks up towards the shoulders. Leave a classical music at a 2 o'clock position, and then it should be at 25 centimeters, not somewhere on the wall from the video. And then gently stroke head down to the shoulders, and also do the bicycling exercises that releases a lot of flatus that they naturally form. And when the infant is listening to the music, they try to do the neck rightening reflex. They're strengthening the back muscles. They're strengthening the thigh muscles and the leg muscles as you're passively exercising. They turn towards the music. They're listening. And that gets deposited into the left prefrontal cortex, which is the executive brain. And there also sensory motor cortex is getting stimulated. Then as they listen, they also want to speak. That is, their expressive language and spoken language center is getting stimulated. So when you put it at 2 o'clock position, when you make the baby towards you, supine position, and doing the bicycling exercises, gently rubbing the back from the stomach to the shoulders and top down from the shoulders, circling movements around the arms and pill rolling movements of the palms and fanning movements of the heels to toes. That is causing myelination of the gross motor system. As we do the exercises, we're strengthening the muscles, we're releasing the endorphins and enkephalins and dynorphins that are also internally relaxing the baby. When the baby is relaxed, there is no stress. They're calmer. They have a feeling of belongingness. When they're listening the music in two different directions, they discriminate, then they're getting a spatial, auditory spatial reasoning. When the mother is making the eye contact or the caregiver is making eye contact and moving side to side, they are following to a certain extent. After 2 months, they can go to 180 degrees, but in the center, they're looking, and through your eye contact, they're engaging themselves. They feel the belongingness, and if you call them, address them by their first name, they're feeling their self-identity. And so, just with this gesture of eye contact, structurally doing the tummy times, and music coming from different directions. So the same music from 2 o'clock, if you play it from 8 o'clock, there's no, hey, it's coming from a different space. Where is it coming from? This is spatial reasoning, auditory spatial reasoning still. And if you play the same music, they tune out because they hardwire for an event very quickly. So you change the music for 3 o'clock position at one time, 9 o'clock position at the other time, 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock other music. So just by doing this, we are calming, we are giving the belongingness, they're getting servant return back and forth, iteratively cycle, and forming a warm positive relationships. Because the adult caregiver is calm and holding the baby, it's an external support, and they're learning emotional regulation. They know that they can calm down themselves later on. This will become as a future use. And for the spatial reasoning, auditory as well as visual, it helps in the mathematical processing in the future. And then just by talking to them, just by addressing them, we are giving them self-image. And just the born social social behavior is very strong in infants. They want to make connections, and so we are enhancing the pro-social behavior, at least with the primary caregiver, between 2 weeks to 2 months, when we start doing this from the day the infant is born. So multisensory integration is nothing other than adaptation to live outside the mother's womb and adapt to the environment that they are in, to cause a structure and function of the brain, while we are supporting the single most message and event that they are taking through sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell. And as the labeling is done for the rattle, for the foot, for the tummy, or even the cooing and in sync repeating a goo, a coom kind of a sounds, we are promoting the belongingness and respect that we are giving to the infant. So many things are happening just by doing this multisensory integration curriculum developed by Dr. Meena Chintapalli between 1990 after reading a lot of literature on the emotional deprivation and the global developmental delays from 1979 itself. And that can be prevented. And as Stephanie Amis has done flow anesometry studies and DTI, documenting that the right brain and the left brain did not connect in ADHD as well as ASD, and within the brain centers they did not connect. We are preventing them from the time the infant is born by connecting the right brain with the left brain with the left for sight, sound, touch, and exercises, sensory motor. As we are doing the bicycling exercises, sensory motor cortex, right and left can cross when you touch the left hand with the right foot and the right hand with the left foot, and crossing all the time, the sensory motor cortex and coordination. Definitely, all these are the future. Although the infant is not talking right now, they have implicit capability of curiosity, exploration, memory, ability to make social connections, intuition as to the intentions of the family. But we need intentionally engaged parenting where there is a lot of love, tender loving care, nurture, and protecting the sensory input. If there are loud noises, if there are harsh voices, if there are fights in the house, if there is a loud television, music, or violence that is going on, definitely that will suppress the sensory input, because children cannot learn from electronic gadgets, from flashy toys, or from objects moving around unless the adult interacts with that object with the infant. So this hands-on experience is important. We don't need expensive toys. We need what we have at home, either a spoon or a plate or a stainless steel gadget that can make sound. Infants do respond to that. Soothing music, but parenting is nice soft spoken words, but rich syntax, rich vocabulary is important, because it's going into the brain, it is making a thematic representation, it will come out, they will start spitting it out by between 6 to 9 months, getting a holographic to telegraphic speech, and maybe a complete sentence even between 15 to 18 months. We expect the word vocabulary to reach about 200 words by 18 months, and maybe 1,000 words between 2 years to 3 years. And there will be explosive language development as much as the babies are spoken to. Later on, we will describe about the emergent literacy, pro-social behaviors, emotional intelligence. But for the basics, we need them to feel the belongingness. We need them to feel that there is emotional regulation from the caregivers as an external support. We need to make their motor strength and coordination better through passive exercises, so there is a myelination. And adhering to breastfeeding, which is the best that an infant can get, and that doesn't come through formulas. There are galactagogues that the mother can take, so the milk production is enhanced. So thank you for your time. If you like these little snippets, please subscribe and press the thumbs up and the bell. Thank you so much.